Thanks very much. Well, hi, and happy Social Work Day. It's great, isn't it? And my day's going quite well. My train was on time. I've had a quick bit of CPD out there, learning about legal highs. And because I'm a bit, shaky on that subject, so that's quite useful. But most importantly, that the last time I was in front of a group of social workers was in Gloucestershire. And it was only, about 10 days ago, a couple of weeks ago, and it was really cold. And so I put tights under my trousers. And I went to the loo before, and I forgot to put my trousers up, and I fell out of the loo door. And so, but today I wore a skirt to make sure that didn't happen, okay? So things are going really well from my perspective. And I've heard that you've had quite a good morning, and I hope I'm not going to ruin it. So we're going to talk probably for maybe about 15 minutes or so. I always talk longer than I should. And then maybe have some questions, comment, debate. And then I'll hand over to the next speaker. I hope that's going to be okay. And of course, when it's World Social Work Day, and this is the second one of these since I've been in post, it really makes me anyway think about how on earth did this happen? How did I get here? Why was I a social worker? And to be absolutely honest, it takes me about 5 seconds to remember the answer, and maybe 10 seconds on a bad day. But actually, I think that, and not just for social workers, but people that are involved in social work, because there are so many people that actually do social work. That we, I think, are lucky people, because I, for one, have had the privilege, I think, of being able to get out of bed every working day and go and do something that I love, but also that I really believe in. And I think that holds us in great stead for some of the, many, many challenges that we face as social workers. And I just, wondered if anyone wanted to volunteer about why they are a social worker. Anybody? How did you come to be here? Well, you think about it for a minute and I'll get a couple of you to say something. But I know why I'm here. And, it's been rooted in me from the day that I was born, really, about public service. So my family are a group of public servants. My mum was a teacher, my dad was a doctor. That's what we do in my family, and that the politics of what we do, what I call politics, not party politics, but your understanding of the social world and your relationship to that, and how you use your privilege and how you contribute to society has been absolutely part of my formative years, and that it was entirely inevitable that I would go into public service, and I am extremely glad that I did. So what about anybody else? Go on. Must be one person.
I needed a job. No, truthfully, I had my children all growing up.
Yeah.
I wanted to do something when I went into full-time employment, something that I could use my skills in, and I didn't want to just be doing a job for the sake of earning money. I wanted a job where I could make some form of difference.
Yeah, exactly. So lots of us come into it because we need to work. But I suppose my point is that how fantastic to be able to work and do something that really, really makes a difference. It gives me meaning in my life, which holds me very steady, I suppose, through every day. Because it is. I think for me, it's about being rooted in a belief system about what you believe is right, about social justice. For us that working in children and families, it's about family justice. These are really important principles, which on the one hand seem, sometimes far away from what we do, but actually they are really, really core to why we do the work that we do. And I think that unless we have, as individuals, a really strong grip on why it is we do what we do, then being in social work and being a social worker can be a real struggle at times, I think, because you can lose your ground. And it's why working with colleagues, peer groups, working well with supervisors, other people in social work is so important, because I think it helps you ground and remember what it is that we're doing. And I was, asked as part of this to think about, who inspires me, like who motivates me. And, it's when I think about it, it's not people who we know, who are in the kind of public eye or whatever. If I feel jaded, the one thing that motivates me and kind of inspires me to kind of carry on is what I've described here. Is people that are fighting human misery, actually, people that are homeless or who are dying or who are terrified and frightened, people that are really facing serious adversity for whatever reason. That's what motivates me, and that's what inspires me to carry on. And I think that as a group of people, as a profession, that is so core to what we do. And obviously I am, chief social worker and, really driving forward the reform agenda to bring us into a very well-respected, integral part of public service. And there are risks and opportunities to becoming a profession, which is actually only a very, very recent part of our history, because we've been around for, depending on what you call social work, but for well over 100 years. And but I do think that as we move forward, and I'll say a little bit more about this, is that being a recognised group of people that offer something that we can describe, a particular set of knowledge and skills, is a really, really important part of our survival strategy over the next 5 to 10 years and beyond. And it is tricky territory, whether you are a single practitioner or you're working in policy or wherever you are. But when I first came into this job, I had to do some prep for media interviews. I was absolutely terrified. And this guy kind of did a sort of, news at 10 sort of mock interview and said, he asked me lots of questions that I just didn't know what to say. And so we kind of rehearsed that. And then he said, whose side are you on? Are you on the social worker's side? Are you on the politician's side? Are you on the employer's side? And I said, well, actually, I'm on the side of families. And that is really where I'm coming from. And I thought I'd just say a little bit. I am talking quite a lot already. But in terms of wherever we are in the system that we work in, whether we're individual practitioners working with families, or whether you're in a role that, like I am, working around national policy, whether you're a supervisor, you're leading organisations, that actually really understanding the system that you are working with is so important. And I think for children and families practitioners, understanding that the family and the child that you're working with is the system of concern, and having that sort of broad perspective is a really, really important part of being able to change what is happening in families. And that, for us, we have a huge tradition as social workers of effecting positive change. And I think in the last 10 years, or maybe 20 years actually, we have become much more kind of process driven, and that we have to get back to doing direct work, and that there's a range of things that we need employers and policymakers and politicians to do to enable us to do that. But only when we get back to a point where most of what we do is about the interaction between the child and family and the social worker will I kind of rest easy. I'm just conscious of time, so I'm not going to go through too much of that, but I'll just say a little bit more about the sort of practice system that I think that we need to be aiming for. And here, it's my sense, I've only been here 30 minutes, but my sense is that a lot of you have been here for a long time, that you're kind of steady, that you do some really good work. I'm sure that there are tensions and problems, but actually the sense is that you are getting on with the work. And I think that really important principles for us as a country is that where we have good practice and a culture which respects families and effects change, that we are able to spread that across the whole country. And that the real principles for me are understanding the critical importance of family. That actually, mostly in statutory work, we are in the business of supporting families or creating new ones. And that family, where that child lives, will carry them not just through a childhood but through their adulthood as well. It's the most important thing that most of us have got, and if you don't have that, then you are faced with huge vulnerabilities, I think, and that's one of our core aims, is to support children to have that lifelong support themselves. I'm a big advocate for proportionate state intervention. I think we have to stop the mass surveillance of the poor and be able to differentiate between poverty and real hard neglect, which if we don't address will really ruin people's lives. We have to understand that we can only do so much, and that when we do intervene in private family life, we should be really, really clear about our purpose and what we're doing there. Help, and if we can't help, then we have to either act or leave. I think that more and more we're seeing the advantages of multidisciplinary skill sets, so bringing different groups of workers together with different experiences, different skills, are hugely beneficial. But my bottom line is that social work, that we are the lead agency for the management of risk, and we must not let go of that. That is that we know how to identify and successfully manage, reduce risk, so that families can stay together, or that we rapidly move children out of those families. I wanted to say a little about the kind of policy work, not too much, but this goes back to the fact that we are a profession, that we have the College of Social Work, and I know Vijay was talking to you earlier about the college's work. We have the network of principal social workers, which really is starting to get traction in the system. That I'm heavily involved in the development of skills and knowledge and ASYE, and the potential for an accreditation system for specialist child and family social workers. So at the moment we have the sort of generic qualification, but actually from a national perspective, that's it. We haven't got any national system for developing practitioners beyond initial qualification. And so that there's quite a lot of work going on at the moment to look at what that specialism would look like, what accreditation there would be. But really importantly for me, this is not, we've got to move beyond looking constantly at practitioners. And I know, having run services for years, that actually you can have the best practitioners, but if they are not being supervised well and supported properly, and their practice developed, then you're on a hiding to nothing. That you have to have really, really good practice managers, supervisors, who are always supervising, coaching, teaching more junior staff. And also that it also extends to the leadership of organisations, is that you don't just happen to run successfully a social care organisation. It's actually a really, really hard job. And that not only do you need to be a good practitioner and understand practice, but you must know how to scale that up across whole organisations, whole shire counties, massive cities. That is not easy to do, and we need to recognise and value the expertise at all levels of the work that we do with children and families. I just want to say it's never going to stop. We're in this constant, change cycle. We're just going to be. There's just no question that is going to always be the case. So I suppose we have to kind of relax into it a bit, and most of it actually already do that. Lots and lots of social policy areas coming up, which I know that will be affecting you locally too. That we've just announced a review of special guardianship orders. That obviously there's been a real drive to increase adoption. Some very, very interesting case laws coming out of the family courts that some of you will be aware of. But really, really surprisingly, since June last year, the number of special guardianship orders for under ones has gone up by 64%. So we're now needing to understand what that's about, and why do we make the decisions that we do around permanence for children, and what's the sort of rationale for the decisions that we make. Big campaigning issues around leaving care and staying put. all the debate about early help and the role of social work within that is my view that we have ignored the high risk part of the system, thinking that early help would be the panacea, and I've never thought it would be, because actually the families that we work with in the high risk part of the system will always be there, and we need to address the system difficulties that we face in working with that group. And more all the time reports are being published which show that actually social work is needed within early help, because actually it's about, again, the management of risk, and it's a really, really important feature of that work. Child sex exploitation, major issue politically, so it's right up, high on the political agenda. But even, the thing that's really rapidly emerging, and some of the work that I'm involved in with some principal social workers, is about radicalisation. And I don't know if that's something that you are engaged with here, but it's a really, really serious area of practice. And that social workers, we have got to get on the front foot of how we as a profession think we should be responding to the risks that poses to children and families. My big bugbear, anyone that's ever heard me talk knows that I talk about the watchers in the system, although actually somebody called me a watcher the other day. But it's about the number of people that we have in the system who are watching what particularly frontline practitioners do. We know the list. We've got team managers, supervisors, you'll have quality assurance people in the system, you'll have guardians, you've got independent reviewing officers, you've got child protection chairs. We've got independent interviews for children that go missing. We've got a whole range of people in the system, and I suppose my big question is whether the resource that they consume is worth what we get out of it. And that's one of the big questions for me in the new administration post-election. Right, I better shut up, hadn't I? Our country needs us. That's what I'd say, is that I absolutely see that there is a renaissance in social work. That I've been, as many of you in the room have been around for a long time, I have seen a move to try and get rid of us one way or another, and that we can do this. We don't need social workers, we can do it. I think people are learning a hard lesson that they can't, and actually we have so much to offer, and that we need to keep on fighting for the respect that we deserve, that you deserve, for doing a really, really hard job. I think we're on a winning ticket. So I better stop there.